Hello, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Holly Shields, welcoming you all to another edition of Kalkine TV's Executive Corner Expert Talks. Today we're joined by Donovan Justice, CEO and founder of DigitalDetox, a pioneer digital product agency specializing in design, full-stack development, delivery, and digital transformation. Everything they do revolves around people, the planet, and technology. Welcome to the show, Donovan. It's great to have you with us.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you on. Now, first of all, I've got to ask you, you describe DigitalDetox as humanity-led. What does that mean for you exactly?
Well, it's a pretty loaded term, but I think I'll start with technology. We absolutely love technology. So whatever we talk around sustainability or, not perhaps using video or images or curbing it, really technology is what we do, and it's where we have our skills. However, we kind of want to put technology to work for us as humanity or people. We don't really want technology to control our lives, to consume our time, or kind of get out of control. So the word we often use is a balance. We really would like to work on behalf of our clients, but also internally ourselves to find a balance between technology and humanity. So that still doesn't quite answer the question. So I think I'll let me give you a few examples. So to start with, internally, when we refer to humanity-led as a business, we've got a sustainability council. We very, very closely track and measure our own scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. And year on year, we're kind of working, albeit being quite a small company, we're 50 people based in central London and around Europe. We still kind of do value that every small difference does actually add up. We've also, for example, got pro bono policies in our business. So, throughout the course of the year, although we work with, enterprise clients solving some really big, complex challenges they have, we've also taken some of our free time and some of our skills and applying it to charities and NGOs. So that's one way we would like to kind of think we're doing something around a contribution and being humanity-led. A second way is with our clients. So I'm really a big believer in, again, every little bit counts, but where we are with DD, we've got some incredible clients, really big enterprise businesses who do care about our future and sustainability. So for example, one of our clients is Vodafone. And what people really don't get the opportunity to do, which we do, is Vodafone has 3 pillars in their business. It's women empowerment, youth enablement, and planet conscious. So they do care deeply about what they do as a business and what they're trying to change. And that's again where we can work with our clients to understand their CSR policies, understand their commitments. And in particular, where our skills lie in digital, we'll look at their digital development, their digital design, how they build and design their applications and services. And we'll work with them to create, whether it's non-functional requirements or new guidelines, and how they can do that more efficiently. I think one of the things that people, perhaps not everybody, but you got to remember there was a really interesting study done in 2019, just before COVID, where the footprint of digital was larger than aviation globally in regards to carbon or carbon equivalent. So it is really a big deal. And for a company like Vodafone, that sits in their scope 3 emissions. So whatever they can do to build and design more efficient, or for a better word, sustainable applications, that's something they do care about. And then lastly, I think we do quite a lot of more external or outbound work at DigitalDetox. So we do a lot of, interviews like this. We try to share those kind of statistics, raise the awareness that, again, technology is great, but it needs to be used responsibly. And what are the things we can do to use it more responsibly or more efficiently? We've also got a piece of consultancy, which we again work with clients, called the Green Report. And the Green Report's where we go in for a period of time and we look at effectively 4 areas of the business. We look at the applications, which we refer to as code. Are we using the latest kind of architectures? Are we caching? Are we setting things up so that these applications are effectively performant and efficient? We'd look at a company in regards to its culture. And when I mean culture, I'm not talking good culture, bad culture. I'm effectively talking about, is everybody aware that it's not just the big wigs that have a responsibility, or it's not just packaged goods and services, supply chain, actually designers, developers. If everybody's aware of that kind of overall commitment from the company and what roles they play, albeit really small, but again, these things add up. That's really important. The third C is cloud. So we'll look at FinOps, we'll look at how the client kind of procures and buys services in the cloud, because there's a huge optimization exercise that can be done there. And lastly, we'll look at what we call customer. So what can designers do? What can product owners do, particularly in service design and digital, around highlighting what more sustainable choices are within a business? So ultimately giving options to customers to say, well, we care about the planet. These are our commitments. And actually, if you buy from us in a different way, or if you pick goods and services up from us in a different way, these are the options, these are the facts. Ultimately, it's up to the customer to choose, but that would make a difference for our business. So that maybe gives you an idea, like, it's not just, okay, we're going to work with NGOs and charities, which we do and we love doing, but it's actually working with enterprise clients, trying to make their CSR policies alongside our projects come to fruition, and equally sharing some of the thinking and research we've done.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect sense there. And there's obviously a massive need from your clientele. Do they have sort of similar needs, and are there sort of similar gaps missing when it comes to their eco-consciousness towards their digital practices?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, again, it's digital. What is the role that digital plays in these companies' sustainability policies? Because again, they absolutely understand their supply chain, their manufacturing, their production, whatever their obviously core businesses. They understand effectively their scope 1, scope 2. But it's these kind of indirect influences they have, in particular, let's say building digital services. There's an awareness that, okay, there is a associated carbon element or energy element to creating services, but tracking it, measuring it, and understanding how to reduce it is something we often see as a gap. It's not a gap in intent, it's a gap of knowledge. And that's where we come in and just help raise that awareness. It's a really big deal. As I said, it's bigger than aviation, or was just before COVID. I haven't got any newer stats, but it hasn't gone down that much. And even if it has, it's going to pick back up.
Right. I mean, I can imagine that you tend to run into a lack of awareness for I can imagine for with a lot of these companies. Do you find that occurring?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's again not lack of awareness that digital does have an energy or carbon component. It's just lack of perhaps ideas of, okay, practically what can we do? Well, absolutely, companies can go and offset and sink carbon. They absolutely know they can go buy more sustainable options in regards to cloud services, particularly FinOps. Okay, so you've got 3 or 4 big players. Which of them are actually contributing or using renewable? Or what energy mixes do these different cloud suppliers have? But the rest of the organization, we often find goes, okay, well, we're offsetting carbon. There's not much we can do about it. We still have to build digital. And actually, that's far from the truth. The reality is designers play a role, developers play a role, DevOps engineers play a role. Everyone can play a role in effectively just understanding how to design and build effectively more performant and efficient applications, which in turn will be sustainable.
Definitely.
Perhaps I'll give you an example, because I've reeled off so many areas. But if, let's say, you're a designer and you were tasked with building a chatbot, well, one thing you should be aware of is that behind the chatbot, there's often a technology called WebSockets. And this is a element of network traffic that's quite intense. Now, I don't expect a designer to know that, but if we raise the awareness that a chatbot is perhaps, for a better word, heavier or more intense in regards to energy than perhaps a body of text, then we're not saying don't use a chatbot, but actually there's a technique where you can put an image to prompt someone whether they want to chat before you start the chatbot. And that alone would make a big difference when working with an enterprise-sized client, because actually we know that very few people actually chat. So rather than starting all that data transfer and all that network activity, reserve all those requests only with a clear intent that somebody wants to chat. But those are some of the practical measures that designers and developers can take.
Right. I mean, it's interesting how just the little things can make a lot of difference. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, if I go back to Vodafone as an example, and I can perhaps bring some other examples up later, they have 500 million customers globally. So that's 500 million conversations every day on a chatbot. And if we can take half of those off the table, that's actually a really big deal.
Definitely. I mean, it does sound small, but then the scale, when you talk about it is quite large and is does make a big difference there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, another example, and this is more of a pet hate and a mini rant. But for example, if you're a developer, we touched on a designer, but if you're a developer and you're delivering a video on a website, nothing wrong with video. It needs to be optimized correctly, etc. But what we'll often see is, and again, it's not a lack of expertise, it's a lack of requirements and awareness, but they'll often put videos on websites and then they'll mute the audio track because the audio track's not intended to play. Maybe it's a background video or it's something they're kind of in the page to support a message, but there's not intended to be any audio. The problem is because they've muted the audio is still delivered, regardless of whether you're going to listen to it or not. And that's actually, again, a really intensive exercise of transferring data over networks, although that audio is never used. And often that kind of waste of digital data and transfer, which again is a pretty big scale, we'll refer to as often digital pollution. Think of it as pollution. It's something that we're never going to listen to the audio, it's still delivered. These things should be stripped and removed from those data transfers. Not only is it going to cost you less, because you're going to demand less cloud services or services in general, but it's also going to be quicker, which we know customers love, quick, snappy experiences. So, it's efficiency, it's cost saving, and it's good for the planet. It's a no-brainer as far as we're concerned, just again, raising this awareness of digital.
Completely agree there. And, you talk a bit about as well, eliminating noise, I should say, for your clients. Does that play into that? What's the significance of eliminating that noise?
That is really to do with the fact that when it comes to designing websites and experiences, this is a little bit more on what we feel about the people side. So people, planet, tech, using tech to benefit people, using tech to benefit the planet. On the people side, we have so many options when it comes to digital experiences. We have so many applications on our phone. All of these brands are trying to grab our attention. They're trying to upsell and cross-sell. There's a KPI, key performance indicator in design, or words in the past, called stickiness. Brands or digital teams will be motivated to get you back, return visits, and kind of create experiences that are effectively sticky. And that was great when there were a handful of websites. I mean, when your bank first introduced a website and you could do online banking, wow, that's fantastic. Can you imagine going to a bank now that don't have an online banking app? You'd be like, what's going on? I expect this really. But when we talk about noise, all of this is a lot of noise. There's a lot of push notifications, a lot of interruptions. I mean, I read something yesterday. People are on average spending 4.8 hours a day on their phone. That's not particularly healthy. But because there's so much optionality and there's so much noise when it comes to digital and services, we often advise our clients to think about, first of all, understand what customers want from your service. And secondly, when they get there, focus wholeheartedly on giving them what they want. So if it's a banking application, give them their balance, give them the transfers. Think of emptiness. Think of creating the most seamless, focused experience so that their understanding of your brand and interaction is, that was a delight. It took me 2 or 3 minutes. I got the job done and I could get on with my life. But if you go to maybe a more older mindset of retail or online experiences, and it's like every department wants to be seen on the page. They want to have a whole bunch of adverts and additional revenue. And then when you get to checkout, it's this laborious exercise of trying to avoid and navigate all these other options and accessories. Get rid of all of that. Just focus on really understanding what your customer needs as quickly and as effectively as possible. Give them what they need. And we feel going forward, that's what's going to build brand awareness. That's what's going to build retention, is a pleasant experience and not to be bombarded with things you don't need. Completely. So it's removing that noise and gump.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, especially if you look at some of the some of the largest players when it comes to tech or large companies. Oftentimes their websites are quite minimalistic, I think. And I think that does say something.
Apple. If you want to go and buy a phone, yeah, and don't worry about the 3 clicks. I personally, or certainly our view is, it's not about 3 clicks or fewest clicks. It's not about the least amount of screens. And I use the word emptiness because actually there's a client we've worked with in the past, and they actually introduced a KPI completely the opposite of stickiness, which is emptiness. They actually wanted an element of their experience to have space and room to breathe. So when you arrive there, if you look at Apple again, it is not bombarded with 100 signposts. You know, if you decide to buy a product, yeah, fair enough, it is a few clicks, but it's okay. You want an iPhone? Let's get you that iPhone. There's a few options. There's other things you can interact with, but it's not mandatory, and it's quite discreet. So yeah, I think some of the best retailers out there they've already understood it and they're taking advantage of that.
Definitely agree there. Do you think that there is anything that small to medium-sized enterprises perhaps can do to get that sustainability side of their digital practices?
Well, I mean, there absolutely is. So, I mean, we're a small company, and I think the one thing we've done, which has made a difference, perhaps less so on digital, but as a business, is start to track and understand your footprint. There are agencies, I mean, in the UK, we work with a company called Planet Mark, for example, and I'm sure in Australia and other places in the world, there'll be agencies that can help you track your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, and then ultimately your scope 3. But I think there's a great quote, and I can't remember who it was, but it effectively goes, you cannot change what you don't know. And effectively, you've got to start with tracking and understanding what your company's emissions are. Once you have that, then introduce that into your company's quarterly, bi-monthly, monthly reporting framework. So, we're very big fans of the B Corp framework. And what the B Corp framework is, it effectively has 6 pillars of reporting. You'll have, and I actually can't again reel them all off, but effectively, you'll have clients. We'll be talking about, clearly a business is about profit. There's nothing wrong with profit and purpose being used in the same sentence. But in that kind of B Corp reporting framework for a company, there's a pillar or area of numbers, etc., and initiatives called planet. So companies live off reporting. Companies absolutely understand the importance of it. So I would track your carbon emissions as best you can, start somewhere, and introduce it into that regular cadence of how we're doing. Is it going up? Is it going down? It's going up. Okay. Let's change supplier. Could we maybe go to a renewable energy supplier? Or actually, if we look at maybe if you're more of a digital business, as we are, how we build and design things. There's some great resources. You can do some research. I mean, by all means, you could reach out to us. We can share with you some great resources. But how could we build and design things to reduce our cloud usage or reduce the network and data transfer of the services we create? But tracking and starting somewhere to measure and track it's really important.
Definitely, that's an excellent idea as well. I think you can't overemphasize the need to track that digital footprint, especially for a small business as well. There's no way to understate that. Completely agree there. So thanks very much for sharing that, Donovan. It's been really great to hear insights today.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been excellent. Thanks very much for joining us on Executive Corner Expert Talks. And thanks for your time as well, viewers. If you've just joined us, we just had a great conversation with the CEO and founder of DigitalDetox, Donovan Justice. Tune in next time for more, only on Kalkine TV.